From the Oklahoma newsroom, this is a Varsity Update. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Cameron Jourdan, high school sports writer. Cam, it's time for some high school football finals. Can't believe it's here already, but here we sit with tons of good games set out at UCO this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Let's start with Friday because I think a lot of people are really looking forward to the 6A2 game on Friday between Stillwater and Bixby, two undefeated teams, Cam.
Yeah, I would expect that game, it's at 7 p.m. on Friday. I would expect that there's going to be a lot of people there. This is a rematch of last year's 6A2 state title game, which Bixby won 34-13. But this year, both the teams have excelled everything that they've done last year. They're both undefeated. Both of them have, I want to say, historic offenses. I mean, that's really what it's been. They've just been fantastic offensively. They both have really strong defenses as well, coming off really big wins in the semifinals. Plus, you get a couple weeks to prepare. These two are going to clash. It's going to be, I think, a couple of the stars in this game. Obviously, for Stillwater, you have Gunnar Gundy at quarterback, Quantrell Walker, the junior running back, Anthony Bland, the senior wide receiver. That's kind of the three-headed monster on offense. But then you go over to Bixby's side, and you have the Presley brothers. Brennan Presley, who's an Oklahoma State commit at wide receiver. He also plays defensive back. You have his little brother, who's a sophomore, who's a running back, Braylon Presley, and then you have Mason Williams, the junior quarterback. So really two three-headed monsters on each side. This is a game that you could have a lot of fireworks in.
And that's the Friday night. That's the primetime game on Friday night. Then heading into Saturday, it'll be three games on Saturday, but the middle of the three is that 3:30 game, 5A. Seems like these two are always meeting in the finals, but here they are again, Carl Albert, Bishop McGuinness. It seems like these two always turn in really fun games.
You know, they really do, and the game earlier this year, they played in week 10, and it was a 40-0 win for Carl Albert, and everybody kind of looked at that score and said, well, what happened? Well, Dominic Richardson, McGuinness's top player, TCU committed running back, didn't play that game. It was his second straight game that he missed because of a slight knee injury that happened in week 8 against Piedmont. He's back, he's healthy. He looks dominant. Seeing him in the Class 5A semifinals last week against Bishop Kelly up in Tulsa, he was just outstanding. He rushed for 250 yards, a couple touchdowns, and he couldn't be stopped. And he's that big of a difference maker now. Doesn't mean Carl Albert is kind of shabby at all. I was talking beforehand, doing some research. Carl Albert has been to the state title game 15 times and won 14 of those. Pretty good percentages.
That's decent.
They have a good track record when they get to the state title game. But Carl Albert's defense is going to be tested more this time. There's no doubt about it because trying to stop Dominic Richardson is a chore.
Yeah.
But also, Carl Albert's offense has been playing really, really well, but their defense has been outstanding. Only giving up 14 points in their 3 playoff games, coming off a shutout against Piedmont in the semifinals. So that one's going to be really interesting to kind of see because it's going to be a completely different matchup than the first time these teams met.
You mentioned some of these good matchups, the 6A2 and the 5A, but obviously 6A1, Jinx Owasso. 4A game, you're looking at Poto and Weatherford. The 3A game, Lincoln Christian from Tulsa and Plainview. Are there some players, those matchups are probably going to be good too. I mean, these teams wouldn't be here if they weren't really good. But are there any individuals that if people are just wanting to go out and see great talent, aside from the ones you've already mentioned, anybody that you would point to and say, go watch this guy?
Really one game that kind of stands out to me is the 11 a.m. game on Saturday, the Class 3A title game between Lincoln Christian and Plainview. On both sides of the ball, especially offensively, there's going to be some really talented playmakers. When you look at Lincoln Christian, it all starts with quarterback Chase Rickey. He's been dominant this year. Lincoln Christian's been dominant this year. They're coming off, they dismantled Heritage Hall in the semifinals. That's what happened, and no one does that to Heritage Hall. So their offense is really, really talented, and it starts with Chase Rickey. He's someone who is going to be really fun to watch. But then on the other side, you have wide receiver Blake Noel. He's committed to TCU. He's a 6'4" guy who's really lanky, extremely fast, extremely athletic, and someone who can make plays. He's almost impossible to cover. Lincoln Christian's in for a real tough challenge with trying to go after him. So that's going to be a really interesting battle at that 11 a.m. game on both sides just because you're going to have supremely talented players.
All right, we'll continue to have coverage of Championship Central. That's what they're calling it up at UCO at Central Oklahoma. We'll have all the times, the tickets, the parking. Look for all that as the week goes on. And obviously, more about these teams and these players as game time approaches. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at Oklahoman.com and every day in the Oklahoman.